Tell you something, being a man ain't no joke.
Toxic masculinity.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sex.
Hello, fellas, and welcome to A Christian Male Perspective. My name is Andre, and on this channel, we focus on how Christian men can move and operate in this modern world. Today's video is going to be a reaction video to the question, do all men agree? Do all men think alike? A Jubilee asked 6 men to come in, and they asked them a series of questions, and they were able to rate their answer from strongly agree to strongly disagree. Now, I'm going to go through each one of those questions and give you my thoughts on that. And I encourage you to do the same down there in the comments. But before we get to the video, I got to do the YouTube thing. Please subscribe to the channel so that this content can be pushed out to those around you. All right, let's jump into it.
I believe sports are more masculine than the arts. 3, 2, 1.
All right, so you see that first guy that went out of frame? That's Kyle Long. He's an NFL football player. So I'm really interested to hear what he has to say compared to the rest of the guys. When you think about being a man and think about being masculine, it doesn't get much more than a NFL professional football player, at least from a stereotypical standpoint. So here we go with this first question. I believe that sports are more masculine than the arts. Let's hear what they say.
3, 2, 1, go. All right.
What's happening?
It was natural.
So right here, you see these lines come up. These are lanes where they can, when they get ready to answer a question, they can say whether they agree or disagree. So you see going from left to right, you have strongly disagree to somewhat disagree to somewhat agree, and strongly agree. So you see here, most of these guys strongly disagree. So I'm interested to see what their answers is with respect to that. Here we go.
Oh my God. Well, now I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm
really
How am I disagreeing with the professional NFL player on sports?
Because some of the most quote-unquote manly men in my life are musicians, actors, people that I relied on as an image of masculinity.
So I kind of hear what he's saying and with respect to that. But I think of when they think of masculinity here, they're talking about those physical attributes you think of when you think of a man. So strength, power, physical abilities. And when you think of arts, you don't necessarily think about those. Then they're not necessarily required. When you think about a model, nothing wrong with being a model, but it doesn't necessarily require to have, you don't think about physical ability, jumping, running, lifting, and those things when it comes to like acting or modeling or painting or singing. Now, one thing I will say is that when I think of arts, when they mention sports, so my mind immediately went to like gymnastics and that just kind of like the first thing came to mind. Even cheerleading. You don't normally think of those as sports, if you will, but I played college football. I coached high school football. I played high school football as well. And I've seen the cheerleaders to be able to hold those girls up and to be able to have control over them and not drop them. That requires a lot of physical strength and balance to be able to do that. Gymnasts, when they're doing things like the Iron Cross and some of the different jumps and runs and things that they're doing, that requires great physical ability. I don't normally, we don't think of those things as masculine because those athletes typically don't have the big, bulky, imposing look. But from just a strict physical strength and ability standpoint, I think they definitely have it. So that's my kind of 2 cents on kind of that initial answer. I personally say that I don't know if, depending on when you say arts, if you're talking about more just the acting or not even acting, just like singing or drawing or, I think sports generally requires more physical capabilities to do those things. But depending on what you're talking about arts, I definitely think it can require some physical ability to be able to do those things. Let's hear what they have to say.
To say that the arts are less masculine than sports, for me, doesn't make sense.
My mom's a cheerleading coach. I think cheerleading is a sport. I argue with her. I'll never let her know I think cheerleading is a sport because I think it's fun to argue with her. But like, there's a certain amount of masculinity, like to do all those, right, to do the backflips and like to push the girls up in the air. So I feel like there is more masculinity that's ascribe to just sports than there is to more of the arts. That's why I somewhat agree.
If you put blood, sweat, and tears into something, that's kind of what creates your character. Losing, getting knocked down, getting back up. I mean, learning those kind of principles at such a young age, I think that's kind of what helps create a sense of strength that kind of helps carry you into a certain sense of masculinity and manhood as you get older.
So yeah, the black guy, he mentioned the cheerleading, which I agree. He kind of said the same thing. Takes a lot of ability to do that.
Oh, I'm an actor. One of my recent roles was Donkey in Shrek the Musical. There was blood, there was god-awful sweat because the costume.
And then the crying.
Yeah, there was crying. There was crying.
Talking about the physical aspect, and I really agree that there's physical in arts and in sports, but then there's that mental aspect. You talked about like failure, getting back up. Like even before you got that donkey role, how many people had to get the audition for that role?
Definitely the arts can be right up with their sports.
Sports are an art too. So.
There you go.
All right, cheesy answer there at the end, but I think we're all kind of thinking the same thing. I would personally say that traditional sports are definitely require more of the masculine attributes and characteristics, but depending on the art you're talking about, again, can definitely require some of it. Though maybe not as much depending on what you're talking about. But traditionally, I would say sports is more I would agree. Sports are more masculine. All right, on to the next topic.
Locker room talk is part of being a man. 3, 2, 1, go.
I want to say this before they even answer this question. For those that are not familiar, locker room talk is what you traditionally think about in a guy's locker room, a sports locker room, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, whatever the case may be. And it's more of the sexualized, the vulgar, the more testosterone-filled, if you will, type of language and attitude. That I think that's what they're talking about when they say locker room talk. And I've been in several locker rooms, and most of the locker rooms, I have to admit, were not toxic in that sense. You didn't have that type of language being spoken, but there were some, especially when I was in college, definitely had lots of locker room talk. And most of it, honestly, was related to girls. I'm just being frankly honest, and what guys were trying to do or plan to do. And definitely from a Christian male perspective, that is not something you want to be engaging in. You don't want to objectify or talk coarsely about another person like that. That's not something that God approves of in any way. And even for those who are not necessarily Christians, just from a polite manner, gentlemanly aspect of a character, you don't want to be objectifying and talking very grossly and lewdly about another person, especially another woman. You don't want to do that, guys. You want to abstain or refrain from being involved in any of those conversations. It doesn't look good on you. No matter what the joking and the laughing the guys may say, it doesn't look good on you. It doesn't look good on you at all. Let's see what these guys say. I'm especially interested in an NFL football player because he's been in a lot of locker rooms at the highest athletic level. So I'm really interested to see what he says.
I'll start it off because I spent a lot of time in locker room. This phrase, locker room talk, has taken on a life of itself. Obviously, in the past years, it's been a hot button issue. And it has changed since I was a 6-year-old and I said my first swear word. And my mom and dad said, Kyle, that's locker room talk.
So he was referring to, this was taken around 2016, I believe, and Trump was running for office at the time. And one of the big brouhahas with Trump was he said something that was vulgar, inappropriate, and he referred to it as locker room talk as a way of excusing it.
You called what you said locker room banter. You described kissing women without consent, grabbing their genitals. That is sexual assault. You bragged that you have sexually assaulted women. Do you understand that?
No, I didn't say that at all. I don't think you understood what was said. This was locker room talk.
And like I said before, it's not an excuse. It's not, you got to take accountability for what you say. You got to acknowledge what you say. And some things what you say is just inappropriate and it's not, you shouldn't be said. So yeah, this was I think this was referring to Trump at that time.
Also think about locker room talk as like sexual in nature too. Someone is gonna say it to you. Someone's gonna initiate your locker room talk.
I mean, I think growing up, playing sports and all that, I think it has found its own way with this new locker room talk as of 2016. And I think that's kind of switched to this weird sexual harassment.
I think by the nature of the question, though, them asking us this, it is the people that are crossing that line that we're talking about, is that part of it. Belittling women, not even if you're belittling women, but you're objectifying them. You're being cruel, but you're like, come on, I'm just joking around. It's a locker room. No, man, that's not what makes you a man. That's not something that should be part of that.
I think men's main role in this situation is stepping forward, setting boundaries, and still having fun within the framework of those boundaries and respecting one another.
As a black man, I looked at it as like barbershop talk, more so. And I just feel like it's just being a safe space for men to be able to get those ideas out. So like if it's something that's like you find extremely offensive and in the confines of that safe space, I could say it, you could say, hey, this is why I think it's offensive. And I could say, oh, I never thought about it like that without having to take that out into the world. Realistically, out in the world, I don't think men have the opportunity to express feelings and things like that like they can in the locker room. Like I'm sure there's locker rooms where you've cried, where you were able to have other men confront you and say, okay, so it's okay to cry in this situation.
Same guys who make fun of you are the same guys who
same way,
you. And that's
so it's that safe space.
And I think that's important. That what the black guy said, I think that's important, very much what he said. We as men, we do need a space where we can talk and work through our ideas. And speaking from the black community, I know growing up, when I went and get my hair cut, I had a friend that did our hair, that cut our hair, and usually it was a group of us guys that would all kind of meet over there at the same time. And that's where we kind of hashed out and talked out things that maybe we didn't feel comfortable talking around with. I remember my grandma, definitely not around my grandmother. But that's how you get kind of learn some things, good or bad, by being able to associate around other guys at the time. So I do understand what he's saying about that as far as having that safe space to be able to talk and communicate as men. However, you still are responsible for what you say. You are still responsible for the words that come out of your mouth. So you, as a person, as a man, as a Christian man, have to be responsible for the things that you say, and you can't pawn it off on, oh, it's just locker room talk. No, guys, you can't use that as an excuse. You're accountable for everything that you say and everything that you do. All right.
Men should be the head of the household. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and answer this before they even get started. Obviously, as a Christian man, I believe that men should be the head of the household. Now, I think what a lot of guys lose track of is that being the head comes with responsibility. It comes with being accountable for decisions and for outcomes. So being the head and being a leader is not some dominant top-down, do as I say type approach. That's not. Think about it this way. Would you want someone treating you that way? Would you want someone demeaning you and treating you as if you have no thoughts or input into the decision? Now, you may acknowledge that they have the final decision, but would you not want your thoughts and your inputs to be considered? Because you may have a good idea. So, yeah, I think a lot of guys get it twisted when they say being the head of the household. It's like, you do as I say. That's not it, guys. That's not it. In Ephesians, in book 5, chapter 5 at least, Apostle Paul talks about guys being the head of the family. The head of the wife is just like Christ is being the head of the church. But that's not meant to be a lord. And he even goes into that because he says, men love Christ as Jesus Christ loved the church, giving himself up. So you being a leader is about being a servant leader. It's about you serving and helping lead people to a better outcome than what they would have, even if they were without you. It's not about you lording it over. So I think a lot of guys definitely get it twisted. But I believe that men should be the head of the household. When we were on a team, right, when I played football, I was the captain of the defense. I was responsible for making any adjustments on that field. It was my responsibility. When we played offense, it was the quarterback's job to determine which play to run if we need to run an audible. He was the one responsible on that field. For offense and defense both, there was coordinators who took the responsibility. If I made a bad call on defense, my defensive coordinator took the responsibility from the head coach because he didn't train me enough or I didn't receive it well enough to put him in position. So leadership is, and to me, it's about accountability and responsibility, not about dominance. So yeah, I'm just going to answer that out. I'm curious to hear what they say, especially the NFL guy, because on football teams, there's hierarchies, and it's just a fact of life. There are hierarchies in this world. So I'm interested to see what they have to say.
My grandpa was a colonel in the Vietnam War fighting for the country of Laos, and if anyone needed a tank, they would talk to him. Anyone needed anything, he was the head logistics commander. And then my dad, he was like the head of a gang. So he kind of demanded respect and became the head of everything. And in turn, both of them were heads of our household. I feel like I have to be able to be the head of the household and have people rely on me when needed.
I just feel like when it comes time for deference, most of the time women prefer to defer to men leadership. And my dad was a primary breadwinner, and then my dad got laid off. Automatically, my mom became the breadwinner. And they just switched those roles, but like when it came time for decisions and stuff like that, she still deferred to him most of the time. And it's like we didn't miss a beat as a family.
So that was something very important that he said there, is that even when his dad lost a job and his mom became the primary breadwinner, when it was time for a decision to be made, she deferred to him. And we're going to talk about submission at some point because that is important in a relationship, in a marriage. And the thing that I focus on there is that his mom chose to submit to his father. It wasn't he pushed down and said, you gotta do it. She chose to do that. All right, let's see what else they say.
And I feel like that's what she wanted. I feel like that's what most men or most women want from their men. It's better for the men to be in that position. I don't feel like a woman can't be in that position.
Yeah, I'm going to build on what you're talking about, CJ, because I feel like each one of us has a unique set of circumstances. And in your case, your dad was really smart in terms of his, decisions. That's why your mom probably relied on him for that stuff. And that's not to take anything away from her. But I'm over here on the disagree side because the question was, should a man be the head of the household? Verbatim, correct?
Yep.
Now, my response to that is no, there is no rules for who's the head of the household.
Point I'm making.
So I disagree with the comment. I think men can be, but it's 2020. And if I were to tell you that I'm the head of my household, I'd be lying to you.
I think there's a leader within each one of us. I don't think it has to do with whether you're a man or a woman. I know in my household, there are times that my wife leads, there's times I lead. We talk about leading up, leading down. We even let our daughter lead sometimes.
But I think they're missing a point. It's not about who leads, right, in different areas. Like, for example, when it comes to doing our family budget, my wife is the leader of that. She is better at that detail-oriented line item by line item. Now, I am involved in it, but if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey, she's definitely the nerd. She's the budget nerd. And that's something she's good at. It's something she enjoyed doing. I have no problem letting her lead in that. Now, I'm definitely involved, and we come together, we make those decisions. But when it comes to doing the budget and make sure everything is on track, I let her take care of that. That's nothing for me to worry about. I can go focus on my work and focus on other aspects of my life. But when it comes to a major decision, when major decisions are being made, that falls on my shoulders. Why? Because if something goes sideways with that, somebody's going to have to take accountability for it. And that should be me as the head of the household. So when I take accountability, when I take accountability for that, that means that if something needs to be done and the decision is made and it puts us in a bad financial position, let's say, for example, and we're running short for the month or for the next few months or whatever the case, it's on me to go figure out how to make that help. Now, definitely have her input and her involvement, but because I made the decision, that accountability is on me. And I think that's what when I hear head of the household, when I think about it from a biblical perspective, that responsibility, that accountability, and another guy I think said it before, should fall, I believe, on the man. That way the woman can actually my wife can focus on, or the wife of the house can focus on running the house and interacting and making sure the family is doing well. Now, definitely men are involved in that too, but that responsibility, ultimate responsibility, accountability to me has to fall on the husband. So that, think about it. If someone was to break into your house, who's the one that's taking the lead? It should be the husband, right? It should be the husband that's the one taking the lead to protect the family. I'm not expecting my wife to jump out and be the head in that and to take the lead in that. No, it is my job to protect and provide for my family, and that comes with the awesome responsibility to do that.
I have discussed skincare with other men. 3, 2, 1, go.
I have a great salt scrub for you. You should get over here.
Well, I just always got all my skincare opinions from the females in my life. I don't know. I just didn't want to feel like I was any less of a man, so I didn't want to talk to other men.
As we all get older, our skin starts to look like that bag that's been left out in the sun too long, and that's why skincare recently has become a thing for me.
I've talked about it a bunch with guys. That's how I find out about beard oil. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my wife that said you need it. It was my buddy with a beard that said, hey, beard oil's awesome. I can think of a couple of friends that we talk about it pretty regularly. One of the guys was concerned about skin cancer. And if he wasn't talking to the guys about it, like, hey, what do you do? He might not have felt comfortable talking to a woman about it. So we just crack that open. We just talk about this stuff.
What did you talk to the NFL player about? Just skincare.
I'll be the first to do this, but yeah.
Damn it,
I strongly agree. I think it's important to take pride in yourself and have self-discipline. It all falls under discipline for me.
I'd actually branch off that too, because I view it as loving yourself. It doesn't have to be you take 4 hours to be able to make yourself look good and presentable, to be able to walk out the door. It'll provide confidence for you to be able to do whatever you want in the world.
I feel like this is one of those conversations that happens during locker room talks, and it may not be, I'm sure some of the people are going to be surprised, all these guys talk about skincare. But those are the conversations that you have in those locker room talk situations.
Yeah, I think it's important. You talk to guys about skincare. We live in Chicago. I'm a serious white boy. I think it's important to, when you're dealing with elements, it's cold, it's freaking rough. We're in construction. It's a lot of nasty stuff out there. So yeah.
So do I ever talk to guys about skincare? A couple of times. I can't say just recently, but I have talked to guys, especially being a black man and a shave, and you get, those who are not familiar with black guys, sometimes we can get bumps after we shave and stuff like that. So I've definitely talked with a few guys about skincare as far as how to treat that and how to take care of that. So yes, I would definitely talk to a guy. If I have another problem like that, definitely. Strongly agree. I would definitely talk about, because I'm going to take care of myself, right? There's nothing wrong with a guy taking care of his skin. Think about if you got ingrown toenails, go get a pedicure. Those are some of the most painful things you can ever have. There's nothing wrong with you going to get a pedicure if you got an ingrown toenail. It's either that or potentially end up at the hospital. Your choice.
I'm fourth generation bricklayers and alley craft workers unions. My dad, my grandpa, my great-grandpa were all union representatives, and it's everything my family stands for, believes in, and is still fighting for. I think for me, being a man is, standing up for people, standing up for what you believe in.
I meet my father's expectations for what it means to be a man. 3, 2, 1, go.
Now, this one is tough for me because I didn't have my father with me. We got an ad coming up. We'll just skip past that. But I did not have my father growing up, so I can't say I agree or disagree with this question. But I'm interested to see what they say.
I'm gonna sulk myself over here now, guys. Never made it. This is a high bar. I am constantly still striving, but my father has different standards than me, and I'm proud of who I am, but there's a small part of me that's just I wish I could hit that bar, but it's also part of me that's there are some parts of that bar that I'm not gonna touch.
Expectations, as we all know, within the family can be very tough, and I know you've alluded to this a few times today, and I feel for you. I really do, in my heart. I just want to give you a huge hug, because I have a dad who has whether he knows he's putting them on me or not, there's unrealistic expectations. The name on the back of my jersey, we share. The number I chose to wear was the same that he wore. profession the same. I will never be my dad because he was a world beater in his field. But I also, in the journey striving for his acceptance, I found myself proud of who I am. And that is being a man and being your own man. And like, I really hope we can find you. If we have this conversation again, I really hope that we can have you at least on the somewhat, because I struggle with that too. And it's a real thing.
I can't think of any time in my life when my dad has ever said he's been disappointed in me. It's been nothing but encouragement. He asks for my help on things now. It's like he's always telling other people how he's proud of me. He's like, yeah, I ran to your dad. He was telling me everything about you. So, and I know like it's like a lot of people like don't even have their fathers in their life. So like I appreciate it that much more.
I love that you guys all have that, talking about what negative consequences we have as men.
So one of the things I do want to talk about here, though, is that thinking about, I have a 20-year-old son, and he's about to graduate. He actually graduated college in 3 years, beat me by a full 2 years. So I'm definitely very proud of him for that. And we had a conversation, he was over here, he was at home over Christmas break. And one of the conversations we had was, he was under the impression that our main focus for him was to graduate college. And that was all we were concerned about. And we had to correct him on that. Yes, you graduating college is important, no doubt. It sets you up for your future. But we explained to him, more importantly, we want you to live for God. We want you to live in a way that pleases God. That is the most, whether you are a CEO and making $100 million a year, or whether you're a cook, because you want to be a cook at one time, and you're making $40,000 a year. As long as you're able to take care of yourself and take care of your family, that's what's important as far as the money materialistically. As long as you can take care of your family and take care of yourself, whatever that lifestyle you guys are living, financially, if you can do that without coming and asking for, handouts from anyone, that's really great. But more importantly than any of that, are you living for God? Are you living a life that's pleasing for God? That's the most important thing as far as expectation. And that is an expectation, I have to admit, that we definitely have with him. It's his decision on whether or not he will live it out that way. He has to make that choice. But as far as expectation, that's probably the biggest expectation I have with him, as far as how the lifestyle that he's going to choose to live. So, each man, as a Christian, I believe each person, man or woman, is going to end up standing before God and giving an account of everything they've said and everything they've done. They're not going to be able to push it off on anyone else. So as a Christian man, regardless of the expectations that someone else have for you, or regardless of the expectations that society may put on you, you're going to be accountable for between you and God, right? That's who you're accountable to, most importantly. So live your life in such a way that he can be proud of you. Live your life in such a way that you meet his expectations. And if you do that, I believe you're going to be okay. You're going to be all right. Let's continue with the answers.
And for holding it in and for not being able to voice our emotions. I think that my dad passed away because he took his own life because he didn't express emotion. It wasn't in his definition of being a man. And so because of that, he bottled everything up to the point where I didn't know what was going on, and I was the closest individual to him. And at that point, it's just mentally and physically, emotionally not stable, and it destroys a person.
Yeah, and that's something he says that's hard to hear. And as men, I definitely plan to talk about that probably the next couple of weeks. I'm actually going to be speaking about it at my church or for a midweek for a service with the group I'm with. And yeah, guys, don't let expectations from the world take you down, right? Focus on God, and he will give you the expectations that align with him, and he will be the one to help you meet those expectations. And that's tough to hear.
No matter how manly of men, it'll destroy you from the inside. Mm-hmm. One of the few things I remember before he passed, he said to me, I can't believe I'm such a tiger and I have a son and turns out to be a kitten. And they're just demoralizing words that my dad would say. And those things just stick with me. So I will never put myself across that line, but I'll always work to get to somewhat disagree so that I can feel that I got to as close as I can to his bar.
It's a shame, man, because you're standing here and you're saying your words and you're standing up to it.
You're a man, dude.
You're a man. You should be over here. Yeah, man, I see you as a tiger.
Yeah, don't let that. You can use my dad if you want.
All right, guys, that's pretty much the end of the video there. Yeah, so you kind of hear my thoughts on it. The two questions I probably thought were the most interesting and worthy of conversation would be, should a man be the head of the household, and do you meet the expectations of your father? And those are things that, guys, we do have to struggle with. And I'll be talking about those more, especially I talked about some about being a leader and from a Christian male perspective, and that's the whole head of the household thing. But meeting the expectations of your father, really, I'm going to try to tackle that from guys processing emotions, and that's something we're going to talk about. How do we process emotions? How do we process feelings we have? Because yes, we're human and we do have feelings. We cannot keep it bottled up inside always, and they're going to blow over if we do that. And the outcome is rarely ever good. Rarely ever good. So yeah, that's it, guys. Again, this is Andre from a Christian male perspective. Stay sharp, fellas. Thank you for watching today's video. Please like it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. You can follow us on social media at A Christian Male Perspective. Stay sharp, fellas.